What's up, Mr. Coltmander?
Rob the bank. What's happening, man?
Not much, dude. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Doing all right. On the little bit of a trip today, so I'm glad there's still was able to work out at my parent-in-law's house. Labor Day weekend. You celebrating anything this weekend? Doing anything?
Not doing much. I actually moved to Miami last week, so this is my second weekend being here and just hanging out, getting to know the area a little bit.
Where'd you move
Nothing.
from?
I was in New York City.
Oh, nice. Dude, I think a lot
Yeah.
of people are moving from New York to Miami.
This
I
is
think it's
the
happening.
flow. Yeah, I was one of just millions of people in a long caravan down to Florida last week, I'm sure.
Well, congrats, man. What part of
Thanks, dude.
Miami? What part of Miami are you at?
We're in Coral Gables right now, but
Cool.
probably be looking to go to Wynwood or some other place. But for now, this was a good spot. I moved in with my girlfriend, and she works in South Miami, so it was a good commute for her. Can you
Nice.
hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right. Yeah, you're coming in clear. I'm on a blend of Wi-Fi and LTE, so sometimes it gets chopped up, but I think I'm okay right now.
Yeah, that's all good. Looks like landlord's up. We got Mark is up too. I'm not sure if is it Black Triangle want to come up and speak too. Do you know?
Yeah, Black Triangle,
Oh,
technical guru. I think he's going to be able to add a lot.
yeah, you just saw him come up. Cool. Well, I think we can get going. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining today. This is the AMA with the X7 team. We have a live proposal up for voting for those of you who are in Colt and part of the many who are staked and voters. So thanks everyone for joining today. This is a little bit of an interesting one because traditionally we don't put up proposals for projects that don't have a white paper or official website or a lot of communication with the dev team. But this is an interesting one that for whatever reason, we have folks that post in our Discord all the time for projects to review, and I'm usually just so busy that I don't really have time to vet almost every single one. And I don't even know the gentleman who posted this one, but for some reason it just kind of caught my eye. And I just started to look a little bit further, and I just kind of rabbit holed a little bit, and it just got more and more interesting the further I went down that rabbit hole. So it is a little bit more of a complex protocol. There's a lot of different moving parts going on. But at Cult, it's really our mission to fund revolutionaries that are helping to build a more decentralized future. And I personally believe, my own opinion, but I do personally believe that the X7 protocol is really fitting within those guidelines. And so, we have Rob the Bank up here, we have Landlord, we have Black Triangle, we have Mark. These are 4 community members that I've noticed that have been super active within the Telegram. It was actually Mark. I actually read your thread that you put up on Twitter, and it was a really, really long thread, pretty in depth. But that's kind of where the rabbit hole started. So, congrats to you for putting that up. And I'm the one who also introduced it to Kyle Chassé. And so that's when he started rabbit holing. And, it's just one of those things where I think when folks dig a little bit deeper. So I'm really excited to have you all here today. For those of you who don't know, the devs, they do all their communication on chain. They're all anonymous. And so, all the members of X7 that are up here today, they're just community members, just like all of us at CultDAO. So it's completely community-driven protocol. They created a community-driven website. The Telegram is community created. Like all this stuff that they're doing right now is community-driven. So, yeah, that's kind of it. That's kind of the introduction. Thanks everyone for hopping on today. So I think we got another request coming up. Oh, Landlord. Okay, cool. So if any of you guys can't hear me, just let me know. I don't know. I'm on different Wi-Fi here, so I'm not sure how well it works. But I think for the first part, we want to, since there's a lot of folks from X7 here today, and for those of you who haven't done it yet, please retweet this space. Let's drum up support and get a lot more people coming. I know it's a Sunday, and this is recorded, but we could probably get over 100 plus people on. So CultDAO, for those of you who aren't familiar, in its simplest form, is an investment DAO. But it has a pretty specific mission, and I mentioned this before, but its mission is to fund revolutionaries who are building a decentralized future. It was launched back in early February, February 1st to be exact. It was a pre-sale in Unicrypt. It had kind of a mysterious tint to it. It was founded by a gentleman named I don't know if it's a man or a woman, to be honest, because they're anonymous, but they go by Mr. Omodulus. And what they did was donate $1 million+ of their own liquidity, locked it on Uniswap for over 265 years, and then soon after renounced ownership of the contract, making it fully immutable and run on code driven by the community. And so the tokenomics are one of those things that's pretty brilliant, but they also have something called the manifesto. And the manifesto, if you go on CultDAO.io, you should turn on the sound if you do, because there's a really interesting speech that plays in the background. But the manifesto is similar to what you'd find as a white paper for a traditional project. But that white paper isn't written like a white paper. It's written like an actual manifesto. So it talks about a lot of the challenges we're seeing in the world today, a lot that's caused by centralization and all the issues with the people in power that have all the money, that's limiting freedom of the people that don't. It also talks about mental health issues and how drugs and everything are also ruining the lives of a lot of people, and how decentralization and bringing freedom back to the people can really help. And CultDAO was created as a funding mechanism to bring that mission and fulfill it. So one of the messages we talk about is Bitcoin was the beginning. It started it all coming out of GFC. If you read the Bitcoin white paper and then you read the CultDAO manifesto, you'll find a lot of similarities. And CultDAO is here to usher in the end of the revolution. So thanks everyone for joining today. For those of you who aren't as familiar with how CultDAO protocol works, we have a treasury, and that treasury is filled by a small transaction tax. So unlike a lot of earlier DAOs where a lot of that treasury was filled by people just donating their money or just putting in a specific stake into the treasury, and that's the amount of the pool that they owned, this simply is filled by volume. So a 0.4% tax, really good volume helps fill that treasury. Over time, that even if that dwindles down, you see it bounce back up. We funded over, call it almost over $2 million in different protocols already in just about less than 8 months, which I think is a really big achievement. And that's all just come from transactions in Cult and filling that treasury. Proposals, since it's fully immutable, each proposal is 15.5 ETH worth of Cult. So the treasury is in Cult, it's valued in ETH, but it is in Cult. So every proposal that goes up is 15.5 ETH worth of Cult. When a proposal is passed and executed, assuming the many vote for it, 2.5 ETH worth of Cult is burned. And then 13 ETH of Cult is actually sent to the investee wallet. So after it leaves the treasury, that's when it becomes kind of managed by humans. And the flexibility is important there because we don't just buy tokens oftentimes. We might send it to a team for funding. It might be seed rounds, things like that. It could be in the form of grants, because the fact of the matter is, if you want to build a more decentralized future, not everything is an investment. So we funded things like a mental health podcast. We funded other things like the farmers fight over in Europe. So there's a lot of different things. We funded the legal battle for Tornado Cash. So those are things that aren't even investments that we think are super important. When the investments come back over time, in the proposal, we often put in what the ideal investment maturation period is. But the fact of the matter is markets are unpredictable. So you want that flexibility there, because Cult is often sold to buy the specific token or fund whatever it's looking to do. There's a buyback of Cult that occurs. And so let's say, for example, 13 ETH goes into X7, right? And then 12 months from now, X7 does a 20X. So at that point in time, Cult may say, okay, well, let's sell half our bag. And so the 13 ETH is then worth 130 ETH. That 130 ETH then buys back Cult. And then that Cult is then sent to stakers in the DAO. 50% of it is actually burned, and then 50% of it is actually rewarded to stakers. And so there's a really hyper deflationary mechanism in place there. And then you also get rewards as being a staker. So the way the voting process works, and I saw some questions in the Telegram for some people in the X7 community. They're like, can we vote? Well, we wanted to, at least I think Mr. Omodulus, the founder, wanted to prevent rigging in the system. And so when you stake your Cult, depending on your rank in the system, determines whether you're a guardian or a member of the many. A guardian is a top 50 staker. And so they're the ones who are actually tasked with putting proposals up in the DAO. for the rest of the stakers, the many, to actually vote on. And the reason why it was designed this way is because in a lot of earlier DAOs, still a learning process, right? As we continue to refine the systems, a lot of those DAOs were just controlled by the whales. The people with the most money had the most voting power, and they just determined where everything went. So in this way, it actually eliminated the whales actually determining the direction. They can propose ideas, right? They can put anything up that they want, but it's ultimately the people, while it's outside of the top 50, that can determine what's actually passed and what isn't. So again, nothing's perfect, but it was a nice way to solve for that. In order to vote, you need to stake your tokens. You need to delegate your tokens to your wallet or someone else. And then any proposals put up after you delegate, you can actually vote on. Right now, it's all on chain. Over time, and so there are, so it's a learning process, right? Like, it does cause gas to vote, but there are things were being worked on by the community to actually solve for that gas issue and kind of make gasless voting at the same time, which is also going to be pretty cool once that rolls out. One other thing I think is important to mention, because there's a reason why Cult is doing well. It's kind of in my opinion, a blend of DGen culture and also some of the biggest brains in the Ethereum community. And so you find the DGen culture leads to just a lot of volume, which helps fund our treasury. They get excited by the memes and all that cool stuff. But then you have, like we had in the start of Cult, you had 15 guardians that were actually pre-selected to help get things running. So Mr. Omodulus, the founder, reached out to probably around 50, I'd say, of some of the biggest decentralization maxis within the Ethereum community. And about 15 of them actually responded and agreed to be pre-selected guardians. They got about call it $15 billion Cult airdrop, and staked, and then became guardians with the agreement that they would help fulfill the mission and volunteer their time. Some of those pre-selected guardians might be names you may know. Oren McMillan, who runs Gnosis Guild. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met. We have David Hoffman, who runs the Bankless podcast. Many of you listen to that. We have Guto Martino, who's super active now in the Cult community. I talk to him almost every day. Justin Wu, who runs Decentral in Art Basel, Miami. That's just to name a few. Clean Unicorn, who's actually, I think, works for the Ethereum Foundation. So, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background with some huge brains behind it too. So, I think I kind of rambled a little bit. I promised I wouldn't take more than 15 minutes to talk about Cult, but I do want to move on to X7 because that's why we're all here today. And then maybe towards the end, we take questions from both communities at X7 or Cult, if that works for you guys.
That sounds great. I
Awesome.
really appreciated that overview. You want me to jump in and introduce X7?
Yeah, man, go for it.
Cool. I'm definitely one of the degens that you referred to. So I am very familiar with Cult, and I own some Cult, and I think it's an awesome mission and organization. And that's why I also think this is such a great collaboration. And thank you, Mr. Cultmander, for putting this together, because I think once we can help people understand what this project is about, they'll realize that the core tenets of X7 and what the X7 developers and community are trying to build are completely synergistic with what Cult stands for. But to your point, Mr. Cultmander, there's a lot to this ecosystem. It's something that I actually don't think has ever been seen before. Kyle Chasse, I'm not actually sure how you pronounce his name.
Chasse, I believe it might be French. Chasse. It's got the accent on the E.
Okay, Landlord and I were trying to figure out how to pronounce it. Chasse makes sense because, it's got that accent. He joined our spaces a few days ago, and even he said it took him an hour to wrap his head around what was being built here. So what I'd like to do is start off this spaces on the X7 side by giving just a project overview, specifically touching on first the technology, second the decentralization and censorship resistant maximalism that I think is really core to what's being built here. And then third, the community, because to me, the community is a byproduct of those first two things. And then if it's good with you guys, I'll hand it over to Landlord and Mark, and they'll go through in more detail, like the tokenomics and the origin story of the project, because it's incredibly unique and really cool. But so to start off, from a technology perspective, from a product perspective, what we essentially have is a new type of decentralized exchange. It's a Uniswap fork, so much of what you see here is obviously going to be similar to many other decentralized exchanges. However, in addition to just a simple exchange, what we're trying to build, or what is being built, is a leveraged trading platform that also allows for lending and borrowing and initial liquidity offerings, as well as an algorithmically pegged stablecoin. Now, that's a lot of product and a lot of horsepower under one hood. Kyle Chasse, again, when he joined our spaces 2 days ago, he said from the looks of it, he personally thought that the closest product in the market currently was probably something like GMX, which is a leveraged trading platform, decentralized leveraged trading platform. But as I mentioned, we have many more components going on here than just simply decentralized leverage trading. I actually encourage anybody who has free time, it's a pretty long spaces, but join into the spaces we did 2 days ago with Kyle, because he talks about the importance of bringing that that leverage trading component into the DeFi world.
Yeah, Rob, real quick, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you remember which voice chat that was? Because I can pin that here so people can go back to it.
It was Community Spaces Voice Chat 17. And actually, you just reminded me of one other thing. It's incredible that you read Mark Renton's thread, and that is what started you down the rabbit hole. So you might want to pin that thread here too, because Mark did an awesome job summarizing the project to date and what's going on. But so from a technology and product lens, what we have is something, what is being built is something that none of us have ever seen. Personally, I think it's the most impressive new piece of technology that I've seen probably over the last 2 years in DeFi, at least. But in addition to that incredible technology, the second piece of this project to me is the moral compass of it. So it is maximum censorship resistant and maximally decentralized. So the developers themselves, from what we can tell, are actually geographically decentralized. They're not in the same room. They might not even know what each other's real names are. In fact, I'm pretty sure they definitely do not know each other's names. And then the community is decentralized from the developers as well. So there really is no throat to choke here. There's no central point of failure, and it represents decentralization to its core. The website and the front-end UI, once it's live, is going to be hosted on an IPFS website, so a peer-to-peer file sharing network that can never be taken down. And the credo of this project, in the very first message that we got from the developers, is long live DeFi. That's how they end their message. So they're clearly trying to build something here that stands the test of time, long after we're gone. This isn't a 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, or 1 decade project. What is essentially trying to be built is an entire financial institution that would rival a JP Morgan or something like that in cyberspace, but it will be community owned and governed by a DAO. So we have product covered. We have decentralization and censorship resistance to its core. I mean, that is so valuable. You could tell it's so valued by the developers that are building this. And it's I'd say front and center into how they've built everything. What comes out of those two pieces there is a maximalist community. The X7 community, I would say, is as maximalistic as it gets. I think it's on the level of Cult. But I think that that's a result of the two previous items, right? You have incredible technology that's never been seen before. It's never been developed. And then you have really the credo of long live DeFi. And you couple those two things into a stealth launch with no VC funding, right? And it's just a completely owned and operated and governed project. And that's what results in me and Mark and Landlord and Black Triangle spending our Sunday afternoons on a long weekend, nonetheless, in the US, trying to educate other people on what's being built here. So there's a lot of components to this, but completely community driven on the marketing front. Our Telegram and our Twitter and all of the educational resources that you'll find out there, besides the on-chain messages themselves from our developers, are run by community members. And to me, that's just a testament to how big this project is and to how really the scale of what we're trying to achieve here. I hope that wasn't too long-winded. I just wanted to touch on those three things on a high-level overview. So, we got product, we got kind of the ethics of the project and then the community-driven aspect of it. Landlord and or Mark, do either of you guys want to jump in and explain more about the on-chain messages themselves, the tokenomics and the ecosystem and those pieces?
Yeah, sure. First thing, thank you for having us, Mr. Cultmander. Thank you for the AMA. Thanks for reaching out. And yeah, that was a really good overview, Rob. So what I would do is just give a brief explanation on how everything started. So about 22 days ago, actually, 22 days ago and 2 hours ago, our first token was made, and it's called X7M105 for the people that don't know. That's our first token that was made, and it came out with little information, really. So a lot of people jumped on board just because of the fact that we had some massive links on chain on the deploy wallet. We didn't know of any use case. We didn't know what the project is going to be building at the time. Everybody just looked at the deploy wallet and they started to surf on the blockchain basically. And the links that you could find links to our deployer wallet is massive wallets, OG wallets that were making big transactions back in 2018. They were moving around like hundreds of ETH. There were some transactions that had like 1,000, 2,000 ETH transfers. And one thing that was also popped up was some links to some OG projects as well. We're talking about links to LivePeer, Dragon Chain, Neural Chain. And that's something that you'll find when you go across the linked wallets. You'll find all of these projects that I just mentioned. You'll find them linked there. So it was very interesting to us. So what you could see at the start is that whoever made this project has been around for a long time. They have, well, back in the day, of course, now, all of the money that was moved back then is worth even more. But we know that there's a lot of financial backing behind it. We know that the people have been around for a long time. And if they were developing back then already in like start of 2018, mid 2018, then just imagine the amount of knowledge a developer gains, especially when they operate in the DeFi field from 2018 until now. So that was something that was really interesting to, I think, every single member, and why a lot of people jumped on board so early without really having full information. Yeah. So the next thing that we did.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Because that's a really good point. Sure. I want to emphasize, because so often in this space, when if you look at large cap or small cap tokens, micro caps, like 9 times, actually probably more than 9 times out of 10, it's always someone who's some dev who's been in the space for 6 months, working out of their mom's basement or whatever it is, and launching something with high tax, and it's almost always a pump and dump. You rarely see a project with years of experience in a token with this small of a cap, in my opinion. So yeah, please continue.
100%. I mean, that's what got everybody so excited as well. Having something different than what is launched every single day. And what was also different is the name X7M105. I think that's another thing that a lot of people catched on to right from the beginning, because a lot of people, including a lot of people know Eric Cryptoman. He's a bigger influencer over on crypto Twitter as well. And he, for example, also said he was looking at the live pairs on Dex Screener as it went live, and just the name X7M105 is like something that stands out. Of course, it's not your typical Inu or Doge killer, or it doesn't have a typical name. It doesn't have something that you'll see every day. So that's something that pops into your eye. And then, of course, he also went onto the deploy wallet and saw all of the links. So another reason why he got on. The meaning behind X7M105 is what we as a community started to research after day 1 or 2. So we had split the name of the first token into 2, basically. So we had the X7 and the M105. And we found out that the X7 could have 2 meanings. A lot of community members at the start said that X7 could be linked to a rocket ship, I think it was a Russian rocket ship or something like that. But also X7 could mean a black hole somewhere in the next to some galaxy. We shared some information on that in our group as well. So that's one explanation, or two basically, for the X7 part. And M105 was a bit easier, actually. This was again shared by another researcher from our community, and M105 is a galaxy, one of the 105th galaxy basically in the Messier catalog. And there's something special about this galaxy as well. Everybody can go and research it. Even if you look at the slideshow from every Messier galaxy that there is over on YouTube, as soon as you get to M105, you notice a difference to, well, either all galaxies, like most of the other galaxies, you'll see a difference. It's very bright, it's big, and kind of like, I'd say it's kind of like clean. You don't have as much noise. You have a pretty simple galaxy where if you look what's around it, you'll see like nothing but clear space. And that also brings me to another point, that the M105 galaxy is also described as low gas. So the galaxy has low gas, and we all know in combination with crypto, we know what low gas means. Something that you'll find what has been described by the developers as well, what they are aiming to do. So another interesting thing about M105 is the galaxy has a supermassive black hole in its core. And that makes sense as well, because X7 M105 being the first token, it is also the token in the ecosystem that benefits the most from other tokens. And what happens there is that the supply is being steadily decreased from X7 M105 by other tokens, especially from the DAO token. The DAO basically creates liquidity pair for X7 M105 and burns it, taking it out of the circulation while adding to the LP. So that's why it is also referred to as a reward token, because if you are a holder of X7 M105 in this ecosystem, you are rewarded by ever-rising liquidity, basically, and tokens being taken out of circulation. So you'll see.
One other thing, landlord, I want to interrupt you real quick. So for folks that aren't aware, it's not really common when you see a token launch that already has like an ecosystem of tokens. So landlord is referring to, when he says the DAO token. So X7 M105 was the first token launched. This was the one talking about the rocket ship and the black holes, and it's the reward, the kind of the main core reward token. And then there's another token called X7 DAO, which I'm sure you're going to get into more of it too. But that's kind of referring to how it burns the LP. Well, it buys and then burns. It creates LP, burns it, continuing for the X7 M105 token.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be the next point that I get to. So you'll see the same tax pattern across the whole ecosystem, apart from the constellation tokens that we're also going to get to later. So there's a 6% tax fee on each token. For X7 and 105, we have two wallets where the taxes are sent to. We have one half gets sent to the developer wallet, and the other half gets sent to the marketing wallet. And so skipping over to X7 DAO now, X7 DAO, as you just said, was our second token that came out. I think it came out about 5 days or so after X7 M105, and it was from a different deploy wallet this time. It got shared in the community very early, so that already showed that the control over this token, it was also renounced, and the liquidity burned, as X7 and 105 was as it came out. So it was shared in our group, and that's when we started looking into it, and we actually found out later that X7 DAO, on every transaction that it does, creates liquidity for X7 and 105 and burns it. So that was very interesting for us. And of course, we had DAO in the name, but at the time we didn't really know that how far it's going to be involved in being a governance token. So we now know that it is our DAO token. The contract actually starts with X7 and ends with DA0, which is very interesting. So we have the name of the token basically combined in the contract address as well. And for X7 DAO, one half of the tax is actually sent to the X7 M105 marketing wallet, and the other half is sent to a new wallet, which is the wallet that basically creates the liquidity pair and burns it for X7 M105. And on the second wallet that I just mentioned, the contract address also starts with X7 and it ends with 105. Ending with 105 because it benefits the X7 and 105 token. This is also the wallet where we see the on-chain messages occur. We just received one today, but we can go over that later. So the use case for X7 DAO, we went over, how X7 M105 is the reward token. X7 DAO is our governance token. And the functions are that if you hold over 50,000 tokens, you get a discount on the constellation fees. The constellation tokens we're still going to get to. In the past, as these constellation tokens came out, holders of over 20,000 X7 DAO tokens got an early access to the constellation tokens. I think it was around 10 minutes before anybody else could trade. Now that's something that we might see in future as well, when the front end is up and the DEX is live. So what's coming up as well, which was announced from the team, is that token fees across the entire ecosystem will be controlled through the DAO governance. Because right now we have a set fee basically of 6% on these tokens, and in future they're going to be capped at at 6%, for example. They can't go higher, but the DAO governance can control whether the fees are lowered. The DAO governance also decides whether to increase liquidity pool lock in future, burn them, or withdraw them and use them for something else in the ecosystem. So, for example, the tokens that are bought from X7 and 105 to create liquidity pair, they are burned currently, but in future they're not going to be directly burned. They're going to have a lengthy LP lock. And the community then decides, is this lock going to be extended? Is it going to be burnt straight away? Or is it going to be withdrawn after some time and used for another part of the ecosystem? And
yeah, that's going to be, so that refers to, right, because there's going to be a merge and there's going to be a V2 for some things, right? So
yeah,
that's definitely a question I have, and that probably not for now, but maybe towards the end, and kind of what the new ones are going to look like.
Yeah, that's something that I think Mark is going to touch on as well. He's going to go over one of the latest on-chain messages that went over the changes that will occur, why they are occurring, what they're going to fix, and improve, I'd say, not fix. But another function for X7 DAO being it will handle the long-term settings on the lending as well. So that was just little overview on the X7 and 105 and X7 DAO token. Now we also have the constellation pairs that we was talking about. And what this is a constellation of low fee tokens with a shared liquidity pool provided by a network of liquidity pairs. And each single token has a pair to Ethereum to ramp on and off the network, basically. So each token has a pair to the others, like X701 has a pair to X702, X702 has a pair also to X7004, and so on. So every single token has a pair with each other and also a pair to Ethereum. And this is a self-stabilizing constellation which adds liquidity to whichever pair is in most need. So it's going to be used for arbitraging, and whichever token basically is lower, quote unquote, that's where the liquidity injection is going to go to, and arbitrages will also ensure the stability of the prices among each other. So additional liquidity will be automatically injected into the constellation also by sending Ethereum to the liquidity hub contract. and a large amount of the liquidity hub is bought back from X7 and 105 and added to the LP of X7 and 105. And long-term holders of this constellation, they can expect an ever-rising floor due to the liquidity taxes and the DEX profits also flowing into the liquidity hub. And short to mid-term holders of X7001 to X7005 can also enjoy arbitrage opportunities across the pair, like I already mentioned. Yeah, I think that was a brief summary of the tokens in our ecosystem. We still have another token, X7 protocol. We don't fully know the use case on that yet. This is one of the more speculative tokens that we have. It's also going to be merged with X7 and 105 in the coming future, in like 1 or 2 weeks. And basically, we're going to have one benefit token, and you can expect a deeper liquidity on that as well. Since the two tokens are going to be merged, the market cap is going to be merged, and so the liquidity as well. So, any questions on that?
From me, well, like, so again, like no protocol is perfect, right? And so like, I'm always also looking at holes and what's wrong. And, you know, Kyle Chesay said this the other day, although it seems brilliant, it could also be just some like total elaborate like long scam, right? But I don't think that's the case, because I completely understand what, you know, if you really want max censorship resistance, you know, you kind of have to send those messages on chain, right? You can't be sending, the devs can't be sending stuff over Telegram and all this other stuff. So at least like the mystery behind it has a purpose, because it completely aligns with the max censorship resistance side of things. The one thing that I can never get over, I always struggle with this, is taxes. And 6%, even though it's not like 10 or 15, is like still on the higher side. Do you know, like with the new kind of merge tokens coming in, if that's going to get decreased, or is it simply going to be based on DAO governance kind of once the DEX and everything launch?
Well, the information that we do have is that the new upgraded tokens are going to have a function that, like, for example, what we already said, that 6%, and we don't have information if it's going to be, if the highest point is going to be 6% or if it's going to be lower. But we do know that the taxes will be able to be reduced by the DAO. So that's all the information that we have. We don't have anything much clearer than that at this point.
Okay, no, that's cool. And I guess this is kind of more of my questions are along like the new ones coming and the merge and all that stuff. But I don't know if we want to take questions from folks first besides myself, because I'm kind of already familiar, because I've been following you guys for a while. Yeah,
Mr. Coltman, the one thing I would just like really, really emphasize, and Landlord hit this and you hit this too, but the merge and the upgrade, the only purposes for these changes is to increase flexibility, increase censorship resistance, and increase decentralization. So yes, I think a byproduct of the upgraded token contracts is that we'll be able to lower the taxes over time. There was a lot of speculation also in the first week or two that this project went live around, you know, what would be our centralized token. Or centralized exchange token. And some people thought it would be X7. We didn't think or see a way that it could be M105, for instance, or DAO with the tax structure that they had, and with the contract renounced. But now, to me, I think the entire ecosystem is probably going to be listed on a SEX at some point on huge tier one SEXs, because we'll have that flexibility. But the flexibility is going to be governed by the DAO, right? So this isn't a developer that, you know, can pad his pockets with 7 figures before lowering the tax structure. This is a community-owned decision. And so all of the changes coming are just to increase that decentralization, increase censorship resistance, and increase flexibility. So I'm super pumped about the V2s and the upgrades. I think it's going to do wonders for the project and allow us to grow significantly larger than we would have been able to under V1.
Yeah, totally. No, that's the one thing that I was thinking about the whole time too, because it's like it or not, like centralized exchanges, like you kind, it's kind of like you need them even though you hate them, because they do create awareness and exposure. And like we had some similar issues, not totally similar, but some issues within Cold. As some we had several tier one exchanges that, you know, they actually needed to, are continuing to upgrade their contracts to actually allow for tax tokens, because Cold has that, even though it's only 0.4%. But contract is renounced, so we can't whitelist any centralized exchange wallets to avoid the tax when they buy and sell or whatever, make transactions on and off Uniswap. So yeah, it is kind of important to have that flexibility. So I completely get that.
Yeah, something I would just like to add as well is, I think everybody that's been in the DeFi space for like a longer period of time, you'll see that every single project has had an upgrade at some time, or they had to tweak some things, because it's just like logical thinking that you can plan something for months or even years, but that's all in theory. And when it comes out on the practical side, when it goes live after a specific amount of time, you're always going to find some things where you think like, oh, we could have done this better, we could have done that better, we could have tweaked this to get more, you know, flexibility in this case, or, you know, just improve something in general. And having a bunch of developers that are looking into the future, so that, as they said in one of the last on-chain messages, they will merge back into the crowd. Like, they want to step back into the crowd at some point. And this is built to last an eternity, basically. At some point, you know, in the very soon future, in the near future, we want this protocol to be working by itself and to be governed by the community alone and its users, basically. So it's better to do these changes now than like some other projects have done, and also like big DeFi projects that are still out there now, like in the hundreds of millions of market caps or billions of market caps. We all know that there was a lot of them that did some upgrades as they were already big. And what we're seeing here is like, we're still in the alpha stage, and that was already stated as well. We're not even in the beta stage yet. That comes in like a week or two. So it's very good to do these changes before, you know, the front end happens.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to predict exactly what's going to happen until you see it play out. And so I do kind of think of the original tokens, just going by what I've been following, is a little bit of an experiment in a way, right? Like, let's see what the community does. Let's see how the volume looks. Let's see how all the tokens kind of interact and connect with each other. And, you know, they see room for improvement, and they're going to make it now rather than wait until it's so big. And then you have a lot of FUD come in and all that other stuff that happens normally with a much bigger community, you know?
Yeah, that's something that they also stated as well. Like, they said that it's an experiment at the start. You know, I mean, it was the alpha, and now we're moving into the beta. That's why at the start they also said, you know, trade on your own risk, and that's what everybody did. And we see that it's been successful. We see that also the constellation tokens are working brilliantly. Everything is working. Everything is pegged to each other. And yeah, now comes the beta phase, and with the beta phase, we cannot only expect the upgraded versions to make everything more efficient, but also deeper liquidity. That was also stated in one of the latest on-chain messages, that especially the constellation tokens are going to gain even more liquidity when upgraded. So that's exciting as well.
Yeah, that's super important. Like, we've experienced that in like Cult ourselves, right? Like, Cult has a lot of liquidity, and that liquidity leads to a lot of volume, right? And so that was one of the things that bothered me with X7, just because the liquidity was so small. So it's if we get that thing higher, that's really, really good.
Yeah, 100%.
What's crazy is that even though we have relatively low liquidity, and we're a micro cap coin, you know, under a $3 million market cap on the core tokens that we're talking about, we still have wallets that are aping in 500K. No exaggeration. We have one wallet that aped in 500K over, I think, 3 days. We have another wallet that's a Zuka whale, and I think he has made 48 buys over the last 24 hours, and they're big buys too. And you don't see that kind of behavior in just a normal kind of degen project, that has a 3-week life expectancy. You see that behavior with really smart money, understanding what they buy. And, right now we're still pre-white paper, we're pre-website, we're pre-UI. And so in a sense, the developers have communicated a maybe white paper summary or blueprint for us for the on-chain messages. But the only people who understand the true potential of what's happening here are the people who have done their own research and really dug in deeply into what's being built and gone through all the historical context that there is to go through. But even without those white papers or those kind of traditional marketing and project planning materials, we have 7-figure whales that are sitting on the sidelines or DCAing in now. And I've never seen that at a market cap this low with liquidity this low.
Yeah, I mean that's what's I think pretty cool, because it's like the community is the one who discovered all this stuff, right? It's so cool when you see what a community can do, and like we witnessed that obviously within Cult, and I'm starting to see that happen with X7, which is really encouraging to see. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what that white paper looks like. I saw the on-chain message. What was it, this morning, or maybe it was late last night? They're polishing and shining their white paper shoes. So maybe we'll see that soon.
Hey guys, it's Mark.
Hey Mark.
What's going on? Thank you again, Mr. CultMander, for having this call. I thought it was kind of a good time to maybe piggyback a little bit off of what you guys have been discussing about sort of the next steps that we're going to be seeing moving forward in the ecosystem. And the whole issue of liquidity. We've been speculating for some time on how the liquidity would be added. And I think we kind of came to the conclusion that the liquidity hub and the Constellation tokens are going to be the beneficiaries of a large injection. And the devs have said so much in the latest update when they talked about the migration, because they were the lowest liquidity pairs. And they also have a pretty high gas fee for trading. I think those are two of the big things that are going to be improved upon. Once that liquidity is injected into the hub, that liquidity is then spread out throughout the rest of the ecosystem. And once the front end and the DEX becomes operational and you start getting these transaction fees and people actively trading on it, that's when you're going to really see the influx of liquidity. So depending on how much they inject initially for the rollout of the exchange, you'll have that. And then you'll also have the combined liquidity of the X7M105 token as well as the X7 protocol token. Those will be merged. Their market caps and liquidity pools will be combined. So you'll have a bump in liquidity there, combined with the injection of liquidity into the Constellation and Liquidity Hub. And then there's a ballet that's going to ensue that's going to deepen the liquidity pools on both sides of that. So I think it was purposefully done the way they rolled it out. They didn't want people slamming the Constellation too hard because it was an experiment. It's an alpha, and they said as much. To see how the arbitrage worked, how retail investors would interact with the Constellation, how retail investors would arbitrage themselves as well as the bots that are on there, how the contract itself would interact in moving liquidity throughout the ecosystem. Now that test has been completed, we see them, and we did get kind of a blueprint. Like Rob said, there was a photo we received that kind of outlined loosely what their plan was before we got the detailed message, which explained that they would be merging X7 protocol with the X7M105 token.
Mark, can I pin that blueprint somewhere to the space? Do you know where I could find that? Is it on the X7 community page?
It might be in the thread.
Okay. No worries. I'll find it and you can keep going.
But yeah, at this point, we are sort of in the holding period between the ecosystem we have right now and then the upgraded ecosystem we're going to have in the next week or two. And we did have a bit of confusion. You can kind of see in the chart where we took a dip because people were trying to wrap their minds around this. I know people have sometimes an issue with migrations. They don't always go well. I have nothing but faith in this dev team. Everything they've done so far has been to a T. Like with the constellation, we always like to use that as a reference point. We were informed probably about 8 hours or so before they were set to go live. They were supposed to go live at 12 a.m. Eastern. At 12 a.m. Eastern, those 5 pairs went live, and immediately people who were holding the prerequisite amount of DAO tokens were able to start trading those pairs. And a lot of people did very well, including myself, picking up those pairs. And I've been having fun sort of doing a bit of arbitrage here and there, picking up extra tokens. So the experiment worked very well, and now they're moving on. And I see this migration also, as Landlord said, these devs kind of want to fade into the background and give kind of the keys to the community to run this. And a lot of the changes that are listed here are sort of benefiting the DAOs. They're starting sort of to show the true potential and power of the DAO holders, as we sort of reveal what the powers they will have are. And it's really powerful, really good stuff. We're going to have a V2 for the DAO. We don't have too much information on what the difference will be. I don't know if they're going to renounce those contracts. I have a feeling that none of these contracts will be renounced, because obviously for us to be able to change the tax structure and manipulate other things within the contracts, they're going to have to be unrenounced. I'm kind of trying to dig through my file here, because this was a big message. Rob, take over for me for 1 minute so I can gather my notes, because I rambled.
No, I think all those points are very important. I mean, to me, if you're on this spaces, Mark, Landlord, and I, with Mr. Coltmander's help, are trying to articulate an extremely sophisticated, interconnected system that has as much community, as technology, as decentralization and censorship resistance as you could imagine. So there's a lot of pieces to speak to. And I think overall, we've given a good summary of all of the core components of the platform. Mr. Coltmander, I don't know if there's other things you wanted us to talk about specifically, or if there are people on the spaces who have questions about how anything is working, then we can, of course, open it up.
Yeah, man, I do have one question. So I'm sure some folks are going to ask this anyway, so might as well ask. With the merge, right? So you have X7 and 105, which it took me a long time to actually remember all the letters and numbers in that one. And then X7 being merged, I would imagine folks are wondering, well, should I wait for the new one to merge if they're interested, or should I buy one of them now or both of them now? My question is, would it make more sense if folks were looking to buy now to buy the one with a lower market cap since they're merging? It's kind of what I expected, but wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so to the best of my knowledge, there's not going to be any value loss. So the developers are going to preserve the investment. If you have $400 in this ecosystem before the merge, post-merge, you're still going to have $400 of value. What they communicated is that the new merged token will have the combined market caps of X7 and X7 M105. And so I think it's going to be probably distributed on a pro rata basis based off your percent ownership. Personally, I own equal amounts, to the penny, on both tokens. I think that in theory, there's no reason right now why one should be more valued above the other, besides the fact that M105 is technically getting burned. But you've really seen M105, X7, and X7 DAO all run in unison. So, not financial advice. That's generally how I'm approaching it. As it relates to the DAO, though, you don't have that merge component of it. All you have is an upgraded contract. So the governance piece of this, to me, is easily the simplest place to put a bet, in my opinion. If you think that this is going to be a large DeFi protocol, the governance token, there's really no confusion there with how that will be upgraded. But yeah, and also just in terms of time frame, I mean, this project has moved really quickly. Like we talked about, we're pre-white paper, we're pre-website. We don't even have like a UI wireframe here. And so the developers communicated about 5 days ago, I think, that the merge would be happening within 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes sooner than that. Like we talked about, they're extremely punctual. They've never been late on anything. So I would say within 9 days at the latest, the merge is coming. But I think that we'll probably have a white paper and some other bullish catalysts before that merge comes out. I'm more of an investor, not a trader. I like to buy and hold things that I just think have enormous value. So I've been DCAing in since these things were like an $18,000 market cap. I literally bought more today, and it doesn't impact my position at this point. I'm just allocating money there because I think it's the best bet. So yeah, that's my approach. I think it's very possible that after the merge, all these tokens already have a $10 million floor, for instance, and you're sitting on the sidelines. But we understand that it's obviously a higher risk play, and you got to do your own research, and you got to feel comfortable with what your exposure is. I think the people on this call have done a lot of research. And like I said, to me, the on-chain messages are an abridged white paper. And that's why I've been comfortable investing right now. So that's my philosophy.
That makes a ton of sense. And for those of you who don't know, this is definitely, I may have said this in the beginning, one of the more like speculative proposals we put up. But it's like once you dig in, you you get it, So that's why I helped draft it up, and that's one of the Guardians put it up. But so the whole idea of getting this proposal passed, because I'm sure we're going to get questions on like what the idea is going to be with the money should it pass, is to have the funds and wait for what we feel is an appropriate entry point, whether it's immediate, whether it's a few days, whether it's a week, it could even be like 3 to 6 months. It's just one of those things where we don't like to market when and how we buy, especially because there's multiple tokens. I would imagine we would invest in multiple tokens because they all have different use cases. The weighting of each, I have no idea yet personally, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't market that anyway, for the reasons of folks front running, which happens a lot when CultDAO proposals come in, especially as one of those things we learned in the early days. Like there were tokens we invested in the early days during max hype cycle where the token was $30 million market cap because it did a 3x right before the proposal passed. We invested and it went back down like 80%. So as an FYI, if folks try to front run it, it's not going to work. Just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, I'm ready to take questions if you guys are.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Anyone want to take the mic? Please request.
Maybe Black Triangle has something to say. Sorry for kicking in there. Maybe Black Triangle.
Yeah.
What's up?
Hi guys. Thank you, Cool Commander, for that host Ama. It's a great conversation. And I very like CultDAO, even if I'm not a holder, But I was watching what they're doing, what you're doing, It's impressive. It's like decentralized VC, venture capital, management with a community. It's an interesting approach. Effective. It's one of successful DAO. And DAO will play an important role on that Web3 infrastructure, what coming. Also, governance. Many governance organizations, centralist organizations now focus on Web3 infrastructure. My English is not native language, but I try my best. It's not perfect.
No, man.
Yeah, and important thing what happening recently with Tornado Cash, and what I see and why I get my attention X7 ecosystem from my side, it's because I was watching about that situation from Tornado Cash. They block wallets on smart contract level. Also, after that, Circle USDC. Also, Aave, Uniswap, and DYDX also block on smart contract level some wallets, what they interacted, and now we understand they have that features to verify wallets, It's basically not full decentralized DEX. It's have organization inside, and they have they connected with the governance, and everything can happen what we don't expect anytime, and censorship resistant on that aspect, it's very important, because it's today they block from Tornado Cash about to block privacy rights. It's basic essential rights of people to have privacy. Not all people who was interacted with Tornado Cash had for criminals. Tomorrow they will say decentralized venture capital can be, like CultDAO, for example. But people must control that, value. All that problems what we see on economics models, everything on that, because people don't control that value, And privacy is important on Web3 infrastructure. And I think DAO playing important role. And if DAO have instruments like X7, immutable ultimate DEX aggregator, with the IPFS host, nobody can block it. Nobody can block on smart contract level trading pairs with leverage, also features, It's one of reason I think they launched that project, to have that instrument, and we always can trade, without worry, and for allocate big capitals and managing liquidity. For that they have borrow lending, it's I see that it's like Ava was blocking wallets, Uniswap was blocking wallets, all that utilities have that X7 protocol. It's a maximum long-term censorship-resistant protocol.
Yeah, thanks so much for saying that. Yeah, like the problem with those is, they grew so big and they didn't make all the, like, I think in hindsight, a lot of those protocols probably would have made those changes in the early days to avoid stuff like this from potentially happening. And so the benefit X7 has, and other protocols launching now, is they get to learn and see from that and make these changes now. I also pinned something to the space here, and this is not, somewhat related to Cult, but not X7 related, but another protocol we invested in is a protocol called Sons of Crypto. They're a Web3 wallet, and I heard Kyle Chassé mention them on your spaces 2 or 3 days ago. And I think what they're doing aligns a lot with X7 in the terms of max censorship resistance, because you have MetaMask, which folks a lot think is decentralized. It's not, right? It's run by a centralized company. It's run on AWS, and they can shut off services in different parts of the world, which you've already seen happen. They also make tons of trading fees from swaps within their MetaMask, like 0.8% on each swap is just insane. And so what Web3 wallet is designed to do, and I think the beta is launching any day. Well, I think it already is launched. And the full thing is going to come swinging pretty soon, within like the next month or two. But allows you to go direct to Web3 without having to go through Web 2 directly to the dApps. And so they've already incorporated Cult into their wallet in terms of the voting and proposal process. So folks can, assuming you have that Web3 wallet, you can actually vote on proposals directly via a dApp that they created for Cult, right? So approve, reject, the gas fee and everything is all incorporated in there. And so I love how, and that's helping create max censorship resistance, because it can't be turned off. And so one thing I was thinking about is assuming the X7 protocol becomes what I hope it to be, is that something else that they can incorporate because it completely aligns with, it has the same mission and values. And so that post that I posted there is a thread by Sons of Crypto or the Economist that tells you to they have a giveaway going on right now, but you can do a comment on there and talk about what privacy means to you. So I encourage everyone who loves privacy to tell them about it. Yeah, so let's take some questions. I know we're over an hour, but for those of you who have time, I still got some minutes here. So.
I agree with you. Web3 wallet, decentralized wallets, is very important. It's one of most important thing what needs space, because MetaMask also bridges is a huge problem, and for that thing another one project of topic, but huge wallets also accumulate from that project X7. It's a GigaSwap, if you're familiar with that. It's like OTC trading platform. And, all OTC tradings platform, we don't see that yet. It's new innovation, on-chain OTC trading and communication also with the wallets. You will able to communicate with wallets directly. And that systems need effective operation of liquidity and shielded pools, like shielded deals. OTC, it's exactly like privacy too. It's because OTC, you don't see on chain what happened. And that wallets from GigaSwap accumulate X7 protocol too.
Interesting. Okay.
And they communicate. They have that features to communicate wallets to wallets, like team communicate here. It's something interesting.
Thanks.
All
no, I appreciate that. I'll look
decentralized
closer.
Web3, all decentralized dApps and like DAO systems, DEXs must be full decentralized to long-term sustainability. For people not worry what happened tomorrow, for 6 months or years from now, because we moving technological progress moving much faster than politics with that board economy. We build here borderless economy from all the planet, from different sides of planet, people from different country. We build in borderless economy, and
100%.
I think most of what we do in here, most of that things don't understand. That traditional financial system don't understand what is going on here. How people focus on one crazy idea, and make it reality. Like, for example, CultDAO. And we will see a lot of that projects in future successful for decentralization, because people will fight for privacy, for human rights, to have that value on our hands, not on the governance or organizations, centralist, to say us what we need to do. We know what we need to do by myself,
Couldn't agree more. I see some people in the audience there, but no requests yet. Anyone want to come up and ask any questions? I know sometimes it might be intimidating because it is a complex protocol, so obviously no such thing as a stupid question. Wastelander, I see you in there, bud. I know you want to.
Don't be shy, guys.
It is a Sunday. Yeah, I mean, if no one has any question, that's completely fine. We can. This is recorded, and we have a workshop open. The proposal is live. I think there's currently about a day left. Currently, it's being rejected. I think it's about a 40 to 60% approval versus reject. And so if you haven't had your voice heard, please vote, whether in favor or against. It's completely fine. That's what your voice is for. And, if it passes, it'll be interesting to see where things go.
Yeah, I'd like to add as well, for everybody new to X7, you can feel free to head over to our Twitter page. On there, we have a link to a link tree. And on there, you'll find all of the links that you need to join the group, join the research group. We have a great thread that Mark made over on Twitter. To find that, you can just join the main group and type in /thread, and then you'll get the link as well. And listen to our latest community VCs, and especially community VC number 17 and number 13. Number 13, we go over the entire ecosystem, how everything functions, and number 17, we had a very good discussion over like 2 hours or so, not only on X7, but decentralization as a whole, with Kyle Chasse as well. Just wanted to add that.
Thanks, guys. And I really appreciate you guys coming up, spending your time on, Labor Day weekend. And, we're all volunteers here, right? We're just trying to work and help build a more decentralized future. I love your guys saying, long live DeFi. I think that's a great one. Ours is Viva la Revolution. So long live DeFi, Viva la Revolution. Let's see what we can do.
100%. Trust no one, trust code, long live DeFi.
Love it. All right, everyone. You have a great weekend. And please reach out to anyone on the X7 team or CultDAO community if you have any questions on anything. Appreciate everyone. Take care.
Thanks for having us. See you guys.
Bye-bye, guys.